Today on Empowering Workplaces, we are diving into energy and authenticity and leadership with Dr. Lizette Warner, who is a healthcare executive, leadership coach, and best-selling author of Power, Poise, and Presence, a new approach to authentic leadership. This is going to be such a good one. You have to join us. Welcome to Empowering Workplaces, a show for everyone who wants to make work better and more fulfilling. We are your hosts, culture designer Maddie Grant and organizational psychologist Sonia Lucina. Join us in today's awesome conversation. All right. Hi, Lizette. It's so nice to have you on the program today. For our listeners, we'd love you to give us a little bit of your background and your interest in these topics of authenticity and leadership and energy and how they all, come together. So, take it away. Let us know about your background.
Yeah, great. Hey, Maddie. Hey, Sanja. So excited to be here with you. As you were talking about my background, it's kind of a mouthful, right? I'm a healthcare executive. I'm an executive coach. I do all these things. Getting all that out of your mouth like that's a mouthful. So you probably whoever's listening, you can really surmise right now that I'm the sort of the type of person who likes to get stuff done. And I do that sort of by filling my own energy cup in the process. And one of the things that I've learned, because I'm in the intersection sort of healthcare and leadership development, because I'm both in the healthcare space working with things like biomarkers. And when people hear biomarkers, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what is that?" It sounds really complicated. So your temperature is a biomarker. Your blood pressure is a biomarker, and we all have these wearables that are telling us now some of these biomarkers, right? So when your blood pressure goes through your roof, and your watch starts beep 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 beep, so telling you, "Hey, calm down," right? So those are biomarkers. And when I got into this space of leadership development, I started realizing, oh my gosh, because my whole healthcare background was in biomarkers, but finding biomarkers for like cancer, right? Helping physicians treat their patients. And then when I got into the leadership space and started coaching with people, I started seeing, oh my gosh, we have so many biomarkers and we're not paying attention to them. And in working with so many people, I started seeing the same sorts of problems coming up. And I started working with my clients to figure out, wow, what are their biomarkers? What are the things that are telling you beep, 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 that something is going awry? And that's how I landed on the book, Power, Poise, and Presence, to help people figure out what are your biomarkers for power, for poise, for presence, which is really confidence. What are the things that tell you that that's present? And then when those are all present, you're authentically there. And then when you're there, your energy, you take up space. You give energy out, right? So that you can show up for work and go home from work having more energy than when you got there. And I think that's the piece of what I set out to. I didn't realize that's what I set out to write when I was writing the book. I set it out to help people who I knew I wasn't going to coach. But since everyone seemed to have these same problems, my idea was like, how can I help people at scale? And so I took all of my knowledge and I put it down on the book. So that maybe is just a little bit of background for us to dig into in any direction that you wish to go to, Maddie and Sandra. I just gave you everything.
It's so fascinating, and I can't wait to dig into it. I personally, and I know Sonia has thoughts, like I personally am, I'm actually a dancer as a hobby. And so I'm very kind of in tune with body energy. And so the ability to connect that to, to work basically is just massively fascinating to me. I can't wait to learn more about it.
Yeah, same here. And I was saying as we were preparing for this conversation, it's this is resonating so much with me in general, but I feel like today particularly and these days, because I'm the person that I bring I love having a lot of energy, I think, as most of us do. And I find myself, especially talking with different people. I work remotely, but I'm on Zoom almost all the time. And that energy comes out and in conversations, and it's very engaging. And then a lot of times, so I have a 4-year-old, and he's just downstairs. And so at 6 o'clock, I shut down my computer and I get the mommy, mommy, mommy. So I feel like I need, which is like the most beautiful thing in the world. And I feel like this idea, I need to, reshift. And a lot of times, like I loved what you said, Lizette, that, um, leaving work with even more energy, because for me, even as somebody who's an organizational psychologist, like a lot of times what I feel like I can do better is sense how I'm doing in the challenges. The fixes I'm not so good at yet. So I'm always thinking about, okay, I love what I do. And I actually enjoy the interactions I have every day. Almost every day, right? We're all human. But I feel at the end of the day sometimes like, wow, I left it all there. Where are those reservoirs? Like, so I can't wait to learn more from you. Like, how is it? Is it a different energy shift? Is it like, what could we, because I'm assuming I'm not the only one feeling this, what can we be doing differently to feel like it's not like work is draining me because it's frustrating, or I feel like I leave it all out there. And then at night, it's sometimes like I'm looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, my eyes are sticky. Like I feel like I can't even form sentences because I'm so tired. So I guess to start there, and then we'll jump into the data point. But selfishly, I'm thinking like, if I'm thinking about this, there's got to be other people out there that this really resonates with. What are your thoughts? What are your suggestions? What can we do?
I think the fact that you're noticing this already points to that there's an awareness there. And I think that's the piece. Sometimes we go home drained and we don't even really think about it.
Yeah.
We just one day goes to the next one, goes to the next one. And then if that happens over time, then that's how burnout happens.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're even aware of it already tells you something, right? And I I started this practice of, reflecting. It's just something that I've gotten into the habit of doing, and actually that's how I wrote the book. I wrote the book because after every single call that I had, I would reflect, even on my own energy, like, well, gosh, that sort of sucked it out of me. What happened there?
Yeah.
And I was realizing, oh, you were trying too hard. Now, it wasn't a judgy sort of you're trying too hard. It's sort of, again, kind of how you just said, Sonia, of, oh, I'm noticing like my sticky eyes. It was just noticing that. I was like, oh,
Like an
okay.
awareness.
Yeah. And then that tells me something, right? And now I can act on that for next time. And you could do that for like at meetings too. You walk out of a meeting, I'm like, oh, good Lord, what just happened? But a lot of times we're like, oh, good Lord, what just happened? I got to go to the next one. Right.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
we don't have that space to go, oh, well, let me think about it. And just take that moment to figure out, oh, we never got to my topic. That was super frustrating. We like went round and round in circles and we walked out of there. Why did we even have this meeting? That's why I'm frustrated. So I think that the one maybe actionable piece there is that awareness, and just having that moment of just looking back. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to fix it all, but just even realizing that that's there can already begin the change, even though it's not even, let's say, an action item that you write down and like, okay, now I got to do this. But just having that awareness is the first key.
And I think we all know the difference between like good tired and bad tired, right? After a work day. Because there's definitely days where you just, maybe you're at a conference or something and your brain is full and you're completely exhausted, but it's like really, really good tired. But I think what I'm getting from what you just said is that you can actually do this. It doesn't have to be a conference or anything out of the ordinary. It can be your regular day, or, every meeting in your day, like just being aware of like what you're feeling. after that meeting or conversation or whatever, and kind of make it like even smaller, but building that kind of awareness muscle throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because then you can take it. Because see, here's the beautiful piece about it is that in itself is already a biomarker. That's what a barometer is like. That's your own biomarker, right? And you don't even have to go out and buy a fancy watch for it. You've got all the tech. You got all the tech you need for it. And so it's just it's if you're aware of it, here's where it now starts to come impactful, where you can be in a conversation with Maddie and Sonia and realize, oh wow, this like I'm excited. My heart's palpitating, like I feel vibrations going, like we're having a great conversation. And it's
We
already
do have that effect on people.
Yeah, you do. You do. It's just that vibe you get off. But let's say it's a meeting, right? And you're feeling that, and we're like, oh, I'm starting. Oh, here's the drain. Here, oh, we're going nowhere. Hey guys, wait, stop. We are going nowhere. Okay, I understand we've talked about A, B, and C. Can we put that on the parking lot and make sure that we get to topic D and get something that we all need out of here? Then it sort of gives you that barometer and the confidence to go, oh, this is why, I need, somebody needs to speak up. And a lot of times we don't want to be the somebody to speak up. Right.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, and then I promise I will get to the data point. But you mentioned wearables a couple times, and I was laughing to myself because most of our listeners are listening to a podcast, so they can't see the video. But actually, yesterday I got like the coolest Frida Kahlo swatch watch, and I'm so excited about. But it's like a swatch. It's not a smartwatch or like a wearable. And is it, what you were saying, like to understand all of your biomarkers, to understand what's going on in your body, do you think does it help having something where you can follow like your heart rate and different things? Is it, could it just depend on the person? Because now I'm wondering, I mostly got this watch too because I have two other ones and the batteries died and I really need to go change them. But I thought it was like, I want to be a fun mood and do something else. But I've been reading a lot about the Aura rings, and a lot of course, people have like either the Samsung watches or the Apple watches. I never have because as much as I was mentioning, like I love work and I love staying in touch, a lot of times if all of that world is in my phone and I want some like mental peace and not, the idea of like a watch dinging me, like every time I get a message or an email, no way, that's like my terror. But I know a lot of people are using it, for good and for understanding, how many hours of sleep did I get and what quality is it and what is my body during the day. Do you think it's a worthwhile investment generally, or do you think it's not necessarily a substitute, to your point, like taking a moment and reflecting on how you're feeling maybe after a meeting, or taking some time to yourself that you're not just always rushing, but even just naturally like taking a look at what's going on with your body and reflecting on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because not everybody needs a wearable. Not everybody can afford a wearable.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you've got all the tech within you to understand and manage some of the data that the wearables are giving you. Now, the data point that you don't have, of course, are all the charts and all you can deep dive into it. Where it comes in helpful, like anything else, those elite athletes, if you're wanting to track your performance, having something that's trackable will be helpful. So, but you're to the point, Sonia, what you just said. I have a friend of mine who I serve on the board of directors with has a wearable watch, and it's been able to tie into her anytime time is mentioned, her watch goes off because she's now, because she wasn't aware, the watch has made her now aware of the connection between her heart rate and anxiety over time.
Wow.
But she wasn't
Wow.
aware of that before, right? So again, it's going to depend on the person. If you're and now it's a bit of a distraction, because when she hears time, she's sitting on her watch trying to set it up because now it's even creating more anxiety.
Yeah.
Once you know what that is, then it's a matter of, okay, now how do I want to course correct? Kind of that's the beauty of the wearables, is that they give you data you didn't have before. But that being said, once you have that data, then it's always, the burden is upon you of, okay, now what are you going to do with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's your decision. What do you want to
Yeah.
do with that? So she doesn't necessarily need the watch at this point. She knows. She knows the connection. And I think that's the important piece.
Yeah. I love that. That's a really good insight. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that answered your question, though, or answers a question that people may have. But
No,
I think it's
it
a
does.
personal decision. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Well, remember, I'm a psychologist. In my world, every answer is it depends. So I certainly wasn't expecting you to say like 100% yes or 100% no. But I think it's a good way to think about it. And actually, I last time before I traveled to the US, I was reading about the Aura Ring. And I mentioned I have a 4-year-old who finally is sleeping better, like after 4 years, but still not perfectly. And a colleague of mine actually said that a friend of his got one, and he was feeling worse afterwards because he then realized how poorly he was sleeping, and he felt more tired knowing that he wasn't getting good sleep. Where before, he's like, oh, did I sleep? Did I not sleep? How long was I awake? After it was like, oh man, I only slept 3 hours. Like, that's terrible. I'm exhausted. So it really does depend on the person. I think you gave us good information around understanding what some of the triggers are. And I think sometimes it's a little bit around self-awareness too. I think sometimes maybe we know, or maybe we think we know, but then there's some other things that emerge and it's like, oh wow, I never knew that was a trigger for me. I felt like it was like smooth sailing through all these conversations, but now look at my blood rate every time something like this happens. Clearly I'm not smooth sailing through it. And I think our bodies do. I think sometimes the way our minds think and the way our body reacts can be very different. Where we think like we're okay, but there's something different happening in our body that's actually reacting to it, but we're rationalizing that we're fine. So I think in those kinds of situations, it could be interesting. But to your point, it doesn't sound like it's absolutely necessary, and it's certainly not something everybody can afford. So there are other ways that we can monitor what's going on in our body. But if we're data driven, if we want to fine tune some areas, that it could be useful. So thank you for that.
Sure.
So we did collect a couple of data points. I feel like in this conversation, there's so much to talk about. I don't even know if we need them, but I will mention them anyways, because that's something that is unique about our podcast, is that we try to always bring in a different perspective from, different workers around generally the US. So through our QuestionPro polls, we asked 300 workers in the US, actually today and yesterday. So today is Valentine's Day and yesterday was February 13th. So very recent data. We asked 2 questions. The first question is, do you feel like you can be your authentic self at work as a leader? And 64% of people said absolutely. 28% of people said somewhat. 5% said not really. And 4% said not at all. And so I'll follow up with the second question because they're tightly related. But what's also interesting is the results were very similar as well. So the second question was, generally, how do you feel your energy is like as a leader at work? And 60% of people said, I generally feel energized at work and am able to consistently show up as a leader. So, good for them, 60%. Now, it's still generally. We made sure to write that instead of like, I always, because that's a tougher one. 27% of people said there's some days when I feel tired, but it doesn't happen often and I'm still able to lead effectively. 9% of people said, I often feel drained in work and it has a negative impact on my ability to lead and develop my leadership skills. And 4% of people said, I almost always feel exhausted at work and find it difficult to lead effectively and work on improving my leadership abilities. So more people on the end of like, I'm feeling okay, but there's definitely a spectrum. There's definitely a spectrum of people saying, generally I'm okay, to like, somebody please help. Like I don't know how much longer I can take this. Based on your work, how do you see this data? What jumps out at you?
You know what, the immediate thing that jumps out at me was the 60% are energized and feel like they can show up, but 64 said that they were being their authentic self.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wonder, I'm like, well, are you really? Because when you are, is what I've found is that when you are authentically you, when you can show up as you, you're not carrying the weight of trying to pretend to be somebody else, or the weight of, oh, I've got to show up like this, or the weight of, oh, I got to communicate a hard message, so I don't want to do it. And it's a weight. All of those things are weights. You're not carrying that because your view on that is different, right? You're showing up authentically you. What I found is when you're showing up authentically you, there's this energy efficiency that just pops up because you don't have to carry a weight. You aren't carrying a weight. As a matter of fact, you're taking up space, which is the total opposite. You're taking up space and sort of communicating that outward. And then when you take up space, it's like there's this lightness about you.
Yeah.
And it's palpable to everyone else. And that in itself is already energizing for other people. So that was like the immediate thing that sort of stuck out at me. I was like, I would have expected that to be higher or equal. So I'm a little bit suspicious about the authentic. Authentic can mean so many different things to people, right?
Well, and I was going to actually ask you exactly that now, because I think there's been a lot of research and lately, and I know we in our research have asked, like, do you feel like it can be your, your whole self, your authentic self? We've asked leaders, managers, individual contributors, and generally like the numbers are okay, which is, like I can't think of them now off the top of my head, but they're relatively high. We would think, okay, like luckily people don't feel like they're totally hiding. Now, my question is, so my self-reflection, again, generally I'm a very positive, energized person, but I've got cranky days. I've got days where I'm like, I'm not having any of this. Everything sets me off. And so my authentic self that day is very different than my authentic self, like a usual day. But is it that also, is it the authentic self? Is it the authentic moment? Is it the fact that I'm being transparent about my emotions and this is just who I am? But like, I also, even as, again, somebody that studies this and does this for a living, on my cranky days, I generally, to my team, I'll be like, guys, it's a little bit of a rough one. Please deal with me. Like, I'm not really being myself, but I still try to reel it in a little bit. Because you don't want people to be on the receiving end of like, well, you sometimes know where it's like nonsense, or like, I don't know why I'm frustrated, or maybe I just, slept poorly, or it was a crazy weekend. I didn't have a chance to rest, and it's Monday and I have 27 meetings. And so I think, I wonder when people think about that, am I showing up as my authentic self? Is it that more genuinely you're true to who you are as a person overall? So I'm not generally faking that I'm a positive person. I'm not generally faking these things. Or is it being more transparent to follow these ups and downs of also how you're feeling? Because I think, to your point, that as we continue to have more conversations and do more research, there'll be a lot to unpack about this authenticity and what does that really mean to people, and what is it, because again, I'm all about being transparent and being yourself. I'm also all about being respectful to those around us and maybe not unleashing the fury of a cranky mood when it strikes.
Yeah, the transparency. I mean, there's a fine line with that transparency, because authenticity doesn't necessarily mean, full transparency, because your team doesn't need to know that you're having a rough day.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, right? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how your team works and how you work, but I do know that transparency is not necessarily authenticity. Authenticity is that who who are you when you're not on, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook?
Mhm.
What are you telling yourself when you're not having to give that speech? Like what's the language that you're using to tell yourself? And are you that same person on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn as you are when you show up at work? Are you that same person? Because in today's world of, to talk about transparency, we're if there's a layoff that happens, it is on LinkedIn immediately. Like never
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
in human history have we had such openness and sort of transparency in that sense of the word, of knowing exactly what's happening in someone's life. And so when you show up, let's say on Instagram or on LinkedIn or wherever you are, and you're acting a certain way, but then at work, you're something totally different. It's that, again, I call that a weight. That's a
Mhm.
weight, right? You're taking something on and off. And that's not really what's the real you? What's the real Sonia? And I think that's why people tune into this show, because this is the vibe you give off. This is the energy you give off. You are yourself here, right? And people can tell, especially in today's world where everything is everywhere. People can tell if you're not being you. Like if you show up at a meeting and okay, we're going to go through all these things that we have to go through, and there's something off. Like people tune into that. And so I think that's, for me, that's there's some distinction there within authenticity. I think it does need to be unpackaged, but it's that who you are at your core, not necessarily that you're open and transparent about it all, but who are you at your core, and is that coming out in all of your transactions and all of your relationships?
So I have to ask, do you think that makes it even more of a challenge, as if we needed one, for women in the workplace? Because I can see a scenario, millions of scenarios, where we as women are, trying to be a certain way to look like a leader
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
order to get that promotion, or to even just have the respect of our peers or our
Mhm.
team or whatever.
Mhm.
And so, like, part of it is authentically us, right? Like our smarts and our knowledge and what we bring to the table. But then part of it is kind of playing the game, I guess, that you need to do, right?
Yeah, or do we need to play that game? And because that's my challenge.
Yeah.
That's my challenge to my clients is the the problems that women face getting into leadership. They are real. They are real. We're not in 50-50% leadership at the highest levels of any Fortune 100, 500, whatever company. We're just not there. We
Mhm.
are not there. And when we do get there, the the I don't have statistics on this one, but I do have knowledge from having coached clients, is like we feel like we're the only person in the room. And what I work with my clients on is you are the only. You know, this is normal. So what is your only? What is your only? Because when you prepare yourself to be, I may be the only woman on the board of directors. I may be the only woman in the C-suite. And that there's a couple of ways to look at that. You can start stacking weight on yourself of, oh, I should be this because that's what everybody else looks like. No, who are you? What are you bringing to the table? Because that's what the C-suite needs, or that's what your board of directors needs, or that's what your leadership team needs, or that's what your team needs, or your group, whatever it is that you are, you're bringing something unique and distinctive that is you, and nobody else in the world has that. Nobody. So when we try to make ourselves look like somebody else, well, one, it's a weight, right? It's heavier. And then I don't feel comfortable. Well, why don't you feel comfortable? Because that's not you.
Right.
You're
Right.
trying to be
Exactly.
something you're not. And so once you take that stuff off, and I'm like, oh yeah, now I can breathe. Now I got space. And now I can say, no, that is a dumb idea. And this is why. And recognize that your only is a power. Like that is your power move, because there's nobody else in the room who has that view like you do.
So to bring it full circle then, if your biomarkers are kind of signposts, signs, right, of you being your onlyness in your onlyness, right? Or you being not quite fully yourself where you need to be, then what's your advice for leaning into those biomarkers? Like, what do you do with that information? How do you change that? So being aware of that is like number one, right? But then what's the next step?
Yeah, I love that question, because then the next step is to discover what they are. Discover both sides, right? And that's what I do in the book. So I help people find both sides. It's almost like walking through we've all hiked, right? We've all hiked or walked or gotten lost. And as you're walking a path, there's always sort of like this fork in the road, and like, do I go this way or do I go that way, right? You've got a choice to make. And that's where the biomarkers and this awareness comes into play, because when you know and you recognize the path and go, oh, I could go this way and that way, I know what the biomarker landscape looks like for me when I don't feel confident, when I'm doubting myself, right? And or there's this path over here on the other side, is the fork in the road, and I can choose to go down that path. But in order for me to go down that path, I need to know what are the steps? What are the steps I need to take? Almost like to throw another metaphor in here. It's like when you're in the kitchen and you're cooking something, right? My husband always so in our house, my husband cooks because I do a lot of the work. So he's always cooked, and he always cooks with a recipe. I always just sort of throw things together.
Oh yeah, I'm the throw things together person too. So.
Yeah, right here with you, sister. So he cooks with a recipe, and he pulls out the recipe card, and he's like, can you chop whatever? Can you zest whatever? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So I'll show people and I'll take them through to help them discover what are their biomarkers, and we'll write it down like a recipe, So dash in, like a shake of fresh air, relax your shoulders, held head up high. You're thinking, oh, I was hiking through the mountains. And maybe I'm thinking I'm at peace. And there's this sort of expansiveness about me. And that is just taking you through a recipe of my peace. I went through this for myself to carve out, what does my peace look like? And I write about it in the book. And so I wrote it down like a recipe card. And then once you have that recipe card, what I do is you work with that, right? And to the point where now I can throw things together because I know what's on my recipe card, right? And I don't need to pull out the recipe card because I know what's on it. And so I just practice with it enough times. And then it becomes like my mom, who can sit in the kitchen and make salsa and not weigh anything or count anything. She just gets it all done. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? It's that sort of process. But to get there, you start with the recipe and you start with the ingredients. Almost like taking a little kid and teaching a kid how to cook, right? You go to the store, you get all the ingredients, you do your prep work, you prepare it, you stick it in the oven, boom, there it is. To the point where then you become a master chef and you start playing with these different things. No.
That is genius. I cannot wait to get your book. All right. right. Well, as always, we're just about, well, we're definitely over time. Like this always happens.
Sorry.
But no, not at all. This is such a great conversation. And I have so many more questions. I mean, I want to ask you about like introversion and extroversion, and don't even get me started down the rabbit hole. So do you, just to close us off, and I know that you just gave some really good advice, but do you have like a closing, just, piece of advice that our listeners can take away with them?
Sure. So, and what I would say is maybe the best place to start would be anywhere, really, and to be easy on yourself in terms of give yourself some grace, right? And instead of blaming yourself for, oh, you didn't have energy today, just take a look at that and start reflecting. Well, what happened? Right? And don't blame yourself, but just notice. And once you notice and you keep noticing, because that's really where I start clients with, is just noticing. I put a biomarker tracker in the book so that people can that's it. Just notice. That's all I want you to do.
Like a daily journal, just
It's
write
almost
down
like a daily journal. I do. So funny. When I didn't know what to do, I would always I started tracking this thing that I did, this habit. I'd go to the refrigerator and I'd open the refrigerator, and it was just 1 tick, 2 ticks, 5, 7 ticks. And I started tracking this almost like your wearable. This is like your wearable, right? Started tracking it. And then I started putting the piece together, like the story that I told of my board member who, she realized, oh, it's connected to time. I connected my opening the refrigerator to me not knowing what to do. And that then gave me that awareness of like, oh, I don't know what to do. Okay, that's it. That's it. That in itself was an exercise that led me down the next path of what do I know? And then I would start when I'd want to go to the refrigerator, I'd go, oh, no, let me ask myself, what do I know? Because I know this is a doubt thing coming up for me. That led to a whole exploration. And now I get super excited when I want to go to the refrigerator because I know I've now put the pieces together, almost like a little jigsaw puzzle, put the pieces together and realized what that biomarker was actually telling me, which was, I don't know where to start on this thing that I'm about to create, which is going to be amazing because I've done this several times before, but I didn't connect the dots to I don't know where to start means I go to the refrigerator and I open because everything's organized in there. So that's sort of I didn't want to leave I didn't want to leave everybody hanging on, oh, what does this mean? So the point is track it, right? Track it. And you don't need a wearable to track it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I've loved this conversation. Thank you. I can't wait to read your book as well. I think that and for all of our listeners, we'll put the link in the episode description, but I think that there's just so many heartfelt, smart, practical pieces of advice that I think all of us are navigating through, maybe some more effectively than others, but I think all of us can learn. I think that this is something that evolves with us and we don't necessarily ever maybe fully master it as humans, or if we, start to there, you always need a refresher. But thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for really, working on helping people at scale with this. I think it's so incredibly important. It's so incredibly important for well-being, for mental health, just really for everything. So thank you. So grateful for your time here today. And it's just so grateful for all the good that you put into the universe.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And if anybody's curious, the book is Power, Poison, Presence, and it's available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, wherever you buy books. So, and they can connect with me on my website. I'm lizettewarner.com. So thank you so much, Sonia and Maddie, for having me. It was a blast.
Thank you so much. Your culture has changed since 2020. It's time for a culture assessment. Our WorkXO assessment measures 8 culture markers that are super relevant to your ability to navigate constant change. Things like agility, transparency, collaboration, and inclusion. And it tells you whether you have the archetypal culture patterns that might be holding you back. In just a 15-minute email survey, you'll learn actionable insights to help you thrive in today's environment. Get yours today. Learn more at propelnow.co.